Hi everybody and welcome to another episode of the Minecraft Disney Q&A. This is the series in which people send me questions regarding anything Disney, whether it's the parks or the films or the history or the games, and I try to give you answers to the best of my ability. Today we've got 4 new questions to talk about while we walk around the parks in MC Magic, and let's just dive right into them. So, first one comes from Alan MGM, who asks, what do you think of Disney making a Beauty and the Beast live action? They announced it a couple of weeks ago and said that it would be a musical film with the entire score from the animated classic and the most popular songs from the Broadway musical classic. Thanks and have a magical week. Well, you too. What do I think about that? I'm okay with it. I feel like I'm okay with film being experimented with. I went to film school, and I feel like a lot of people think that it is this blasphemous act to remake something or to reimagine something. They talk about how it'll ruin their childhood, and I just think that's so silly. Like, make it. Sure, they want to make this movie, make it. It being good or bad has no bearing on how much I will enjoy the original animated film. If it's an awful movie, I'll forget about it and I'll just continue to enjoy the original. If it's a great movie, then it's another film that I get to add to. And on top of that, it could act as a means of getting kids into the older films. I am a realist when it comes to film. The fact is, today, when it comes to animation, what young kids really want is 3D. And if it's not 3D, it's probably not very interesting to them. And you can call that a shame. You could say that's just the direction it's going in, whatever. That's just the state it's in. And if making a live action film will get people interested enough in Beauty and the Beast as a story to try out the older film, then that's great. If it doesn't, well, odds are they weren't going to discover it anyway. So I don't have a problem with stuff like that. You know, Disney is also a company that is very often returning to old properties to capitalize on and to sort of expand on. Sometimes it's as minor as just re-releasing the film The Disney Vault, right? You're just taking something that they made years ago and you're reselling it. So what's the harm in taking something you made years ago and re-envisioning it? I don't think there's a problem with that. The one argument that I could find against it is if, you know, they're taking funds away from an original project to create this, then yeah, you can argue it hurts originality. But at the end of the day, I think rarely is that the case where they've got those two projects and they go, well, we're going to do this one instead of that one. Especially when you look at, you know, who's in charge, right? Like we have Bob Iger. He's done great things. But to be fair, and my one gripe with him is that he's not like the bastion of original content. You know, he's all about buying talent that is super talented and using that talent and creating things based on that talent. So it's not surprising to me that under him they would do something like this, and I think that's fine. And I think hopefully in the future we'll have a CEO that maybe swings in the other direction and does more original stuff than revamping, and it's just a constant cycle and flow, and things change, so I'm okay with it. Our next question is a very interesting what if, comes from Sean Blue Revamped, who asks, if Disney offered you a job to do the videos you make now, but in real life, walking around the parks, answering questions and talking about the park, but the catch is you'd have to leave Rob Plays That Game channel and had to post your content to Disney Channel, and you would lose a lot of creative control, I feel like this would be a very hard offer to turn down and you'd have to say yes, but I'd like to see what your answer would be. This is a very specific question, but it was very out of the blue, so I thought I'd be worth answering. I don't know what I would do in this situation. I don't think there'd ever be a situation where I'd have to totally ditch this channel. Maybe like I'd have to stop doing Disney stuff if I worked for Disney and then just do regular Minecraft, but there would always be a Rob Plays That Game. Although I guess time commitments totally play into that. I don't know, that's a tough question. Like I mentioned just in the last question, I went to film school. I totally valued creative control, and to me that value can sometimes go far beyond a monetary value. So to say like, well, Disney would pay me to make these videos, that's cool and everything, but you know, what I like about it is I can talk about what I don't like about Disney, what I don't think they're doing right, what I think they could do better. And if I were to ever work officially for Disney, I would obviously have to stop doing that. I don't think any company wants you to be vocal about what you think is wrong. So I don't know. That's a tough question. I would love to work with them in some extent, but maybe not to a full extent. So as like almost like an independent contractor, I could say, well, I love web and I love web media, and I would love to work with them to talk about how they could do web media better and what they could do, but then still have my own thing so I can, at the end of the day, have that creative control that I value so much. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that question. If they came to me tomorrow with that offer, it would be a very tough offer, and I think it would boil down to a lot of the details. It would not be as simple as, yes, it's Disney, I must. Sometimes, and I remember hearing this quote, way back, and it wasn't Disney related, but sometimes you have to turn down your dream job. You have to turn down a dream job for the dream job, and it's about recognizing that. Our next question comes from Olivia Brogan, talks a little bit about the history here, and asks, do you think Disney would be as successful as it is now without Eisner? Would it be as big as it is now if someone like Iger helped Disney rise again? So I guess the question you're posing is what it would be like if Eisner was never CEO of Disney and it just went straight to Iger. I don't know. I think that'd be tough. I think that'd be a tough situation for Disney. I don't know if that would necessarily help Disney rise. What you have to do is you need to understand how Iger worked and how Eisner worked. Eisner came into Disney with this very financially modest outlook. He was the kind of person who said, we don't need to pay $10 million for, this well-established actor for this film. Let's pay $1 million for this no-name that we think has the talent to pull it off. And that, to be fair, was how Disney came across a lot of talented people, or brought back a lot of actors. Like, I remember Robin Williams, I think, was in a big slump at that point, career-wise, and so rather than going with somebody who's like really hot at that time, like really big in Hollywood, they say, well, we could get Robin Williams for much cheaper, and then you have Aladdin, and then you've got The Timekeeper, and you have Flubber, and you have all these things, and you can see the talent in people who aren't well known, do it cheaply, and then pull that talent out and then make it something big. And that's how Eisner, I think, took Disney, which was in very financially rocky places, and made it the stable success it was, which was, instead of making big risks and, putting everything on the line, he played it very safe, but did well enough so that it grew over time. And then that's sort of how it blew up. Iger, on the other hand, sort of has a different style where he sees a Pixar, a Marvel, Lucasfilm, and he goes, well, that's talent there. That's the talent. Let's spend the money because it'll be worth it down the line. And as we can see, both styles worked. But it depends on which style is needed at the time. In the mid-'80s, Iger's style of running the company today would not have worked because they just wouldn't have had the money to acquire these sort of brands and make that happen. Eisner's style, I think, would be unnecessary today because they have the money that they could do things like that. And when you're as that large a structure, sometimes it's a good idea to just get talent that's already out there. So I don't think it would have been as successful if you had swapped the two. That, and also there are like practical things. Iger was a lot younger at that time, probably not as well versed in business as Eisner was. Eisner's a lot older now and probably has a different style of business than he did at the time. I think it's a very tough what if to bounce around, but definitely an interesting one. And then lastly this week, Kid Fluky 2000 asks, recently Disney World only let Fast Pass holders onto Toy Story Midway Mania in Hollywood Studios, and guests without Fast Pass could not go in line. What are your thoughts? Thanks. So what he's talking about is back in, I've got the article next to me, like a couple of weeks ago, they ran a test, Disney, in which for a day or a couple of days, you needed a Fast Pass Plus reservation to ride Toy Story Midway Mania. They said it was a test. It was a few days long, and it, honestly, I think a lot of people freaked out because they saw it and they thought, is this a sign of things to come? Are we going to one day have this Disney where everybody needs to, come up with schedules for Fast Pass Plus to enjoy these rides? And I think that's kind of blowing it up bigger than it needs to. I think, honestly, it is what it was. It was a test. Data is super important. To have that data and for them to do that could be very, very helpful in the long run for them deciding on how FastPass could run. Though I think we're ever going to see a day where you need FastPass Plus to ride anything in the parks. No, I don't think that'll be the case. Maybe we could see a day where the most popular attractions like Midway Mania or a Tower of Terror or something would require it. It's totally possible, but I think that would come along with a simpler system to get that reservation and a lot more freedom to fill that up. I don't think they would ever do a system like that where there's a hard limit on how many people could ride it. But it's hard to sort of look into that future, right? Because technology is always changing, and that changes the way this works. 6 years ago, if we talked about FastPass Plus, it'd be a crazy idea because to schedule that, you'd have to call a number, right? And cell phones were only just at that point really becoming massive. Again, 6 years ago, this was pre-smartphone, so the idea of having an app to schedule it was just out of the picture. So it meant going on a computer, which you couldn't really do most of the time when you're at these parks. So, that was just 6 years time. So much has changed that has allowed for this technology. Where are we going to be in 4 or 5 years from now? It could be in a place where, you're on your Apple Watch and you just hit a button and you schedule it. And then, maybe there is a system where you need a FastPass Plus to ride it. But getting that FastPass Plus is as simple as hitting a button, seeing what time you've got, and then just showing up when that's the case. So I don't know. It's tough. I think it's great that they ran the tests. I mean, it must have been annoying for those people for those few days, but the more data they have, the more that they can look into these things and come up with these sort of solutions and plan for the future. Anyway, I want to thank you all for your awesome questions. If you have a question you want me to answer, all you have to do is leave it in the comments below. I try to get to as many as possible, if not in the videos, in the comments themselves. If you want to ask it more directly, I'm at Rob Plays on Twitter. I'm Rob Plays a Game on Facebook and Instagram. If you want a more regular feed of Disney questions, all you have to do is hit that subscribe button. And most importantly, have a fantastic week. Whatever you're doing, make the most of it because it makes it that much better. And I hope to see you all next time for the next episode of the Minecraft Disney Q&A. Bye, everybody.